If you look at a total cost of ownership for continuous monitoring, there's there's two things. There's the startup, and this is where a lot of people, where they think. So what are you paying for the software and the hardware? What's it going to take to install and get customized? One piece that we actually find a lot of people getting hung up on or thinking about is internal change management. If you're going to put this in place, you're going to change how the company is working when it comes to resolving problems, right? Right now, there's a way things work, that hidden factory of rework that Selwyn talked about. You're talking about re-architecting all that. And it took us a while to uncover. That was a lot of things that were delaying people's decisions. We're thinking about that. And we've actually developed a fair amount of expertise, as well as you can certainly work with any of the Big Four can help you with that. But just thinking about what this means to change your company. And then there's the operational cost of owning these things. There's the handling exceptions, there's refining the analytics, refining the workflow, and then adapting to the inevitable change in the application infrastructure. So if you look at digging into the operational costs, I mean, there's two big things that happen. One, how many exceptions do you have? And two, how much time does it take you to handle each exception? And the true positives, great. You love handling those. Those are the really, those are the real money on the table. And obviously, the false positives cost you or a waste of time, but you're going to have them because you can't have. If you go for no false positives, you're going to have some false negatives. I mean, it's the nature of this kind of job. The other thing that's kind of hidden, though, is repeat positives. So imagine, again, if you're looking for a duplicate payment in a 30-day window and you look every day, you don't want to find the same thing 29 times. It'll drive people crazy. The people using the system, that's the reasons why they'll abandon it, because like, I've already done that before. I've already seen that, right? So repeat positives will kill you. The other thing is a ghost positive, and that was the whole idea I mentioned, where somebody in the operations fixes the problem. So imagine if you're the person using continuous monitoring, I'm going and trying to track down an exception, and I get there and it's not there. Well, the reason it's not there is because somebody in the operations actually fixed it for you first, before you got to it. So you want to try to, these last two, the repeat positive and the ghost positives, are something you really want to try to eliminate from this quantity of exceptions. And then the effort gets down, it's pretty straightforward. People have to figure out, why do you think you found it? Evaluate what they're going to do to adjudicate it. See who's going to correct it. I'm getting the, real quickly, this is how our user interface is set up. And I'll mention at the end, I'll show you, if you want to get a live demonstration, we do them all the time on WebEx. I'll give you a contact point for that. We can let you prioritize a list. We give you a plain language description. We show in our user interface all the supporting data. So again, this is all designed to make it efficient for somebody to resolve exceptions. So here's what I mean by that. I don't need to interpret codes. I'm going to read this and say, okay, I understand why this was a problem. Me, the user. And from a workflow standpoint, these things are going to move through an organization, and you want to have a very definitive process for following exceptions through. You want to be able to control it, that someone can, who can assign what to whom. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this workflow, and again, if you tell me you corrected something, I want to validate it. And just to give you, this is a picture of what a client's workflow looks like. So the first one, of course, is the generic marketing example. This is more of a real world, here's the workflow, here's how we're going to handle the different types of problems. And again, just I mentioned, you want to be able to track who's owned the problems and what status they think they have it in. I mean, that's part of, I'm going to find something I may think that I need to give Miklos to have him look at it, and he's going to say, you know what, Barbara, it's your problem. They're going to flow, but you want to keep tracks of all that. And all of that activity you want to record in a permanent journal, including any notes or attachments people have about the problem that they found. So if you can automatically record all that, you're way ahead of the game. And this is where you get into, if you look at how much it costs you to handle exceptions versus what it will cost you with an oversight, and you have to go through Selwyn's model for people to really recognize that, but it turns out eventually you're dealing with these problems somehow, some way, and it's costing you a lot more money perhaps than you recognize. So there we go. To arrange a live demo, just either email events at Oversight Systems or call the number 770-984-4600. Find it, fix it, prove it. We think those are the key tenets for successful continuous monitoring. So I don't know if I have time for any questions, or
maybe one or two questions.
One or two. Anybody any questions for Selwyn or Ryan? Yes.
You're doing the value proposition with your clients, and you want to come up with the cost and the savings. Fraud by its very nature is elusive. Most people don't believe they
Well, that's why you end up going through and working through with them. Okay, how does this work in your company? When an error, and one of the things you said, the cost per, it's really the cost per error, what Selwyn was talking about. How does it, what happens when a mistake happens here? Tell me how it works today, and we put their numbers and their process in this model. We're going to be pretty close, frankly.
Yeah.
But it's pretty, I mean, it's math, right? So
Before, when I do, oh, thanks. Sorry. I've done several of these ROI demos for prospects, and what I do prior to the demo itself is I give them a data request list and ask them to give me, as close as possible, the data that I request. They may not know everything, but make reasonable, educated guesses. But then we run through some scenarios. So it's almost like a Monte Carlo simulation. I'll run through different scenarios. Okay, you want to tune up the exception rate from 3% to 4%. Let's take a look at what that does. You want to tune down, the recovery auditor cost from 30% to 25%. Let's look at it. So we spend quite a bit of time running through various scenarios. But at the end of the day, the ROI is pretty compelling. You saw numbers there where the standard methods were in the millions, and continuous transaction monitoring solution is in the hundreds of thousands. So even if there's an error rate based on some of the input data coming in, 50% as higher, it doesn't matter, because the trend is clear that there's a compelling ROI to doing continuous transaction monitoring.
any other questions? Yes.
So for your clients who have implemented this, do they call this like a key control for SOX purposes? Does it become a part of the SOX testing? And then also, how do external auditors, have they accepted this as part of the control structure?
The answer is it absolutely can. So that's what we've seen happen. We've seen where we become the process of resolving exceptions, and that's where having the whole journal matters, because then you can really prove what happened, can become part of their control infrastructure. And then what they get to with their auditors, the auditor says, okay, we're going to test this process. We're going to sample, see how they're doing that, as opposed to going and doing our own testing. Now, I mean, a lot of we'll have to, we've had to go kind of in a bake-off versus the analytics that the auditor used to look at, this is particularly around manual journal entries, versus ours, and show that we're finding everything they're finding, and then we're finding stuff they weren't finding, and that fairly effectively proves the case, and it's helping, it's reducing the risk for the auditor. I mean, it's generally speaking a good thing for everybody.
And it's an example of where an auditor agreed that they would reduce the number of hours. I think it was manual journal entries, right? From 800 hours effort to 400 hours effort, based on the fact that the client had implemented Oversight.
External audit.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.